Well, at least on the upside, the weather condition in the UK right now is actually a lot more better than the forms of how it does in last week, but I'll discuss on that in a later time. So, hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, based off on the Wii game Kirby's Return to Dreamland back in 2011. So last time, we have completed World 6, which appears to be Egg Engines, and today, we're going to be hit on to the forms of the next world in the game, which appears to be Dangerous Dinner. So get it? We've come across into the letters C, R, O, W, N, E, and now D, which spells out as a coded name, Crowned. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, that will be important until once we get to the final world in the main game of Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So either way, let's dive right into stage 1 right here. So of course, about the fact that we was able to collect all 5 of those energy spheres in this level. Now I'm pretty sure that could be also applied into stage 2 and 3. Because of that though, relatively speaking, this world is going to be pretty short, despite how most of those levels go by very lengthy and stuff like that. Well, I guess it makes an obvious sense, because we actually towards at the end game. Well, in terms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland portion of the game, because, well, relatively speaking now about the fact that once we're done with the main story mode, basically not only do we can able to actually unlock extra mode, which I'll discuss on that at a later time, but also with the forms of the arena, just like the forms of how it does in the original game. And on top of that, there's also going to be a new content that is only available during the forms of this version of the game. But again, we'll point things out until whenever we get to maybe at some point in this Friday or something like that. But we shall see what happens in due time. So either way, so a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that is that, well, today's date, of course, is the 17th of April today, in this case in 2023 today. Now, I can't believe by saying this, it's been like the entire a decade ago, well, to be more specifically, 10 years ago, since, do you remember with the forms of that particular Nintendo Direct announcement back in 2013, usually taking place in April, sometime in April? Well, it's been 10 years, but I think I should probably be able to have a mention about the recap of that in a moment, because, relatively speaking, there are quite a few things I would like to mention. First of all, about the fact the matter is, though, is about the fact that we actually getting very close until the actual, the release of the forms of Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. I do apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks, but that's only mainly because it's been about quite some time since I actually mentioned that particular compilation game as far as I'm aware. Well, mind you about the fact that I haven't exactly ordered the game for myself, you say, so... But I digress. So, in addition to that though, is about the fact that unfortunately I no longer have one of those games in particular that undergoes the forms of the Simpsons game on the Nintendo Wii version. Although, I'm guessing it's most likely because about the fact that I did look upon the multiple comparisons in between multiple versions of the Simpsons game. And I found out that the Wii version is a little bit lackluster in comparison to the forms of not only the Xbox 360 version, but also on the PlayStation 3 version as well. Because what I've heard, that the PS3 version is actually a little bit better, and same applies with the Xbox 360 version as well, because of better controls. Because I can assure you, with Wii Remote's early days of motion controls, feels a bit all over the place, which I can assure you about the fact that, yeah, unfortunately though, we no longer have the Wii version of the Simpsons game. That's just because about the fact that it's boiled down to motion controls, and it's definitely one of the weaker gifts I've ever got during the forms of in Christmas 2018, which, for those of you who want to be curious about this, then you probably already expect, because I much rather prefer playing games with the actual controller. Although don't get me wrong, with Wii Remote and Nunchuck combos it's not too bad for certain games, but for other like license-based games, it can be felt a bit cumbersome at points, to me anyway. But that's just mainly because about the fact that I'm so used to with the actual controller itself. So, mainly about the fact that I was able to actually try to get myself the PlayStation 3 version of the Simpsons game, during a later time, especially concerning about the fact that well, despite the PS3 version doesn't seem to be able to have trophy support, just like the Forms of Valor does it on Sonic 06 or Kung Fu Panda and all that stuff. But, and I can assure you that could be also applied to Sega Superstars Tennis as well. But, yeah, it's just about the fact the matter is though, yeah, sadly to tell you that the Simpsons game Let's Play is going to be delayed until specifically probably next year in 2024. Well, to mark the, I would classify for saying until when it gets to the point until, let's just say, the 35th anniversary of the release of the Simpsons cartoon show itself. Well, I suppose we'll be able to find things out eventually though, at least because of how the fact that originally I was able to just, wow, I don't know about you. Oh, dang it, I somehow did this a bit too early for that timing. Oh well. No big deal, because besides, we can able to actually just retry those segments as many times as we wanted to, so either way. Although, originally, I was expecting to able to actually no longer have Pac-Man Party, but I figure I might as well kept it with me. But that's just because about the fact that I'm biased when it comes to, like, party games based off of video game mascots, you know, with Mario and Sonic. Well, usually Sonic only has, 2 video games representing with the actual party minigame compilations and stuff like that. Both are Sonic Shuffle and Sonic and the Secret Rings with all its minigame compilations. And on top of that, with Crash Bash for the PlayStation 1, which I still managed to have with me. Well, despite the fact that I haven't exactly touched upon the game yet. Well, that's just mainly because about the fact that it's kind of unfortunate since I've got myself the Platinum Edition of Crash Bash. I don't have the ability to able to actually do a bit of a cheat code, unless if you do have a copy of Spyro 3, that basically though you can able to actually activate every single portions of it. So either way though, well, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed The Simpsons, don't get me wrong, but it's just about the fact that unfortunately the Wii version of The Simpsons game doesn't seem able to last for very long, especially because I think I'm also able to try to get myself the PlayStation 3 version at some point in Journey Forms of maybe by the end of this year or something like that. Well, it's kind of hard to tell personally, but that's just because about the fact that it's been a very long while since I actually have last played something related to The Simpsons, because thanks to the forms of not only Mighty, but also with Ray the Flying Squirrel and Pac-Man, they both managed able to really enjoy The Simpsons Hit and Run on the GameCube version, because I was originally trying to able to expect that, yeah, we can't able to actually realize about the fact that I don't think we can probably get the PS2 version or the Xbox version for that matter. But that's just, well, as far as what I've heard, that the Xbox version is actually a little bit more crisper, as far as I'm aware. Well, mind you about the fact that, it's been awfully a long while since we actually mentioned something related to The Simpsons. So, anyway, so we've met again with this Snowball super ability right there. So that way we can able to freeze up this little volcanical thing right here. And we'll break that apart until we're able to reveal the dimensional portal. So because of that, now I'm pretty sure in every single like regular levels in the Forms of Dangerous Dinner involves around us to able to go through other dimension portals, as you can tell for the sake of time. So anywho though, so yeah, again, it's a bit of unfortunate, but it has to be done, especially concerning about the fact that I know for a fact that, well, it's just, you know, with what I've seen the gameplay footage, that you have to utilize motion controls a lot. Well, that could be problematic when it comes to, like, beat-em-up games or anything else like that. So, yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. So, anywho, though, and on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that we actually did come across into something I was very appreciative about this kind of stuff, though, is that, well, after a long amount of years of wait, I finally managed to get myself Kirby's Dream Collection for the Nintendo Wii. Well, now I know you guys are thinking that, hey, is this supposed to be only worked on the US console? well, I still managed to have myself the US Wii, so that way not only do I can able to play Mario Super Sluggers with that system, but also now I can finally manage to get a chance to play Kirby's Dream Collection to try out new challenge stages that I've never actually experienced before. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, better late than never, I suppose. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, it's a good thing I did somehow manage to still got myself Mario Super Sluggers with me, so that way we can probably do a redo Let's Play of that at some point. But we don't know exactly when though, just because we still have no idea what the next Mario game is going to be on the actual Nintendo Switch library of stuff. But as far as I'm aware, from what I've heard on several teasers and stuff like that, they will able to actually mention something more related to Mario games during at some point for the future Nintendo Directs. So yeah, I was going to be able to think about the same thing from here and there. So anyways, let's go ahead and use this sand copy ability, so that way we can able to take on the Sphere Doomer again. Oh, and on top of that, about the fact that I can easily manage to able to say that I've somehow managed to also got myself not 1, but 3 episodes of Kirby Right Back at Ya pre-installed for the sake of the forms of Kirby's Dream Collection compilation, which I think is actually a good thing in my part. Well, despite the fact that it's only down to 3 episodes simultaneously, so unfortunately though, I didn't get able to actually well, again, it's been a very awfully long while since I actually did done some of my commentary recently, but that's just because about the fact that, well, straight to the point, that I'm actually having a fun time with this nice weather condition today. So either way, because turns is odd though, and also not to mention though, I was being busy playing my PSP for a bit, for, you know, trying to able to relax in the garden, essentially, so I can able to just, well, practice my own run, for the sake of not only Mega Man Powered Up, but also Mega Man Maverick Hunter X on the PSP. So that way, I'm not exactly sure if I was going to do a Let's Plays of those, because I still haven't unlocked something during the forms of Mega Man Powered Up yet, so anyway, so we've actually unlocked something, which is the Wing Challenge. So, and I think we've only got one more challenge stage left to unlock, and also the final sub-game we can able to unlock during the forms of the Lore Star Cutter, and that will be about it in terms of the forms of energy spheres. So anyway, so the few things I want to also mention about this as well, about the fact the matter is though, I've already mentioned about the fact that I was so happy that I finally managed to able to got myself, you know, Kirby's Dream Collection, in this case one of the greatest Nintendo compilation games ever, alongside with the forms of the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, despite I still haven't got that yet. Well, mind you, it might be a bit redundant for me, but that's just because about the fact that, well, I've already got most of those Zelda games, you know, in terms of like separate releases or somewhat. So, although it does contain the retrospective video alongside with the special movie based off from The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, and on top of that the demo version of The Wind Waker as well. Well, mind you about the fact that I'm not exactly sure if I was trying to get that compilation or somewhat, but also shall see what happens in due time. So, anywho, so in terms of everything else I could possibly discuss upon something, yes, we did obviously got ourselves the next tour coming up for the likes of the Mario Kart Tour events, and this time we're going to be going to Greece. So, relatively speaking, it's about the fact that not only does it bring the one new track, but also with another new cosmetic driver, because I was originally going to expect that they were able to actually bring something related to, or I don't know, new characters alike. Well, mind you, I'm very able to have myself Poochie at long last, as you probably already expect. But I'll get to the actual list and then later down the road, because as far as I'm aware, there's another thing I should probably also discuss on that before we get to that stuff. Recently, that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania finally got a DVD release date for the sake of the UK version, and that's going to be releasing until next month, which appears to be May 22nd. So, roughly about 10 days after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been released on the Nintendo Switch. Well, despite the fact that it's going to be mixed results when it comes to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, because, well, I found that film alright, but it's just nowhere near as amazing as the films of the first film and the second film, so I might be biased, I guess. So, Oh, and on top of that is that Disney's Cinderella, you know, with the 1950 version of that particular anime classic, somehow, out of nowhere, they're actually receiving the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray version of the film, so it's going to be releasing until the 3rd of July in this year. So it's roughly about a few days before Pikmin 4 is going to be releasing, for the Nintendo Switch anyway, so yeah, that's actually super dope and everything. And speaking of Zelda related, there's going to be a new Splatfest that's going to be happening for the sake of the Forms of Until on May. And I think if I recall correctly, it's going to be Zelda themed, which is go alongside with the Forms of the release of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So, relatively speaking, that the next Splatoon Fest for Splatoon 3 is going to be taking place in the forms of, well, Splatoon 3. Well, it's kind of hard to say, honestly, because it's been quite a few days since I actually mentioned something related to that. So, yeah, those three teams are the power of, you know, the Triforce of Power, Wisdom, and Courage. And what makes this pretty cool, though, is that it actually shows the actual silhouettes of certain Zelda characters from representing the Triforce itself. Like, obviously, Ganondorf or Ganon is actually Power, and Zelda is Wisdom, which makes perfect sense, and Courage for Link. So, yeah, it seems to be a pretty cool way to able to actually celebrate it with that particular stuff, though. So, yeah, that seems pretty cool. And, on top of all that stuff, though, that, basically, there was actually that one point that I was actually onto the forums of the Mario Wikipedia recently, and they do found out about one thing in mind, is that one of those questions I did somehow manage to come across into, they've managed to able to mention something more related to, now with that has been released for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, how do you feel about the Super Mario Bros. Movie? And the majority of the people did say, I greatly enjoyed the Super Mario Bros. Movie and thought it was a good potential of the world and characters, which, yeah, so far is actually on 1,765 votes, and the amount of percentage meter was actually on 54.92%, so that's actually pretty good, and yeah, that's as far as I can usually think about this for the sake of time. Although, I'm pretty sure that much like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the film, basically the Russians' release date, it doesn't exist yet. But that's just because about the fact that, well, you know, with the actual ongoing war and stuff like that, as you probably already expect. So, and it looks like we get the strong sense of feeling that, you know, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp is not going to be delayed again, which is a good sign. Especially concerning about the fact that, again, during the forms of this coming Friday, well, they're now able to actually finally get a chance to experience the game for reals. So, either way, though, that seems, you know, very happy and all that stuff, which, again, I do apologize for that mispronunciation of certain things I could possibly say about it, because, again, it's been awfully a long while since I actually mentioned about, you know, commentary stuff, so. And straight to the point about the fact the matter is, though, Camp King 74, he's now on to Chapter 5 right now for the likes of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. So, expecting that he'll have a lot of high expectations with that particular chapter, so. Oh, and on top of all that stuff, though, it's about the fact that, yeah, let's just get to the Forms of the Mario Kart Tour stuff before we're able to get into the other stuff I would like to mention. For instance, that the new course is going to be introduced in Mario Kart Tour's Spring Tour for this year. And that's what it appears to be, as I said before, we're going on to Greece. And it's going to be called Athens Dash. So, yeah, it seems kind of a weird name for a course like that. And something tells me about the fact that we will be able to actually expect to come across into that track at some point in one of those Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, specifically Wave 5. So, well, again, it's all about the speculations at the moment, so we can definitely seemly to say that I will classify for saying that between with the forms of Los Angeles Labs and Piranha Plant Cove, and especially noticeable with Athens Dash, I believe those are going to be for Wave 5. And I can assure you, for Vancouver Velocity, it will be the 6th and final wave for sure. But I don't know about the forms of the other ones, though, because, well, again, it's hard to speculate at the moment, because, again, we're not exactly at summer yet, so expecting that the high expectations will be, well, staggering, so. Anyway, so in terms of the forms of new content they were able to reveal for this spring tour for this year, the new driver is going to be Toad this time, and it's going to be another cosmetic character for Toad, because it's been a very long while since we actually come across into one of those regular Toad cosmetic characters since, I would say, Party Time or something like that. But either way, the next cosmetic character for Toad is going to be Tourist. So, because I could definitely tell he got himself a nice little cap, says Toad, alongside with the backpack, and on top of that, a camera. So, pretty interesting, all things considered. Well, mind you, I'm more definitely going to be experiencing that particular character whenever I first start the tour up, because after all, I've already access to the Gold Pass subscription for it. And on top of all that stuff, though, there's also a new Mii Racing driver as far as I'm aware, and it's going to be a traditional generic Mii Racing suit, but this time it's going to be blue color. So, yeah, I guess that makes it pretty obvious, kind of thinking about it, to match the colors of the forms of Greek language and stuff like that, or Greece, you know, flag, because, you know, it contains not only white, but also blue colors as well. So, oh, and on top of that, when it comes to cards, they obviously include a vehicle based on a BBIA airliner. Okay, that's interesting. And there's also silver flower cards and also bronze cucumber. Okay, that's interesting. And there's also gold painter. And finally, cream classic. Okay, that seems like an interesting card parts that we are able to come across into. Now, in terms of gliders though, they're obviously only going to be revealing two of them, which are Golden Glider, which is pretty self-explanatory, and there's also Gold Tulip Corset, I think is what it says anyway. I apologize for that particular, like, weird pronunciation errors at points, guys, because I know for a fact there's been a, you know, awfully long while since I've actually done some of my commentary. I mean, let's face it though, about the fact the matter is though, we've almost at the halfway point in terms of 2023 already. So either way though, let's go and get ourselves some more energy spheres. So either way, that basically does it for level 7 too. So now, in terms of the forms of the courses they're able to bring us into, I believe they, as I said before, not only does it bring Athens Dash, but also with Athens Dash 2 as well. So, relatively speaking though, I'm very curious to see what that track is going to be like, assuming of course they're able to port it over to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at some point. So, oh, in terms of the forms of the blue Mii Racing suit, as far as I'm aware, for the special item for that particular outfit is going to bring us into is the dash rings. So, not that too surprising, I don't think. Well, I guess that makes it pretty obvious because it's all color blue and everything. Oh, in addition to that though, that when it gets to the point until the next tour coming up in the next 2 weeks, they will bring us into not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 other Mii Racing suits based off from the Koopalings. So, yeah, that's actually interesting. And those are going to be Larry, Iggy, Roy, and finally, Ludwig. So, yeah, that seems a little bit interesting. I'm guessing it could be something related to the Bowser tour coming up, and I have no idea why I somehow take a death right there. Mind you, because I wasn't paying attention to it, so, yeah. So anyway, now we've actually able to succeed for this point right there. Thank God, no need able to worry about getting crushed every single portion's worth noting for. So anyway, in terms of other things I could possibly discuss upon things, is that for whatever reason, about the fact the matter is though, is that, well, apparently that a lot of fans couldn't stand the films of the Marvels trailer. Well, assuming of course about the fact that they got themselves a massive backlash after Disney takes shots at fans. So, even though it's a bit difficult to explain, because I know for a fact that it's just a teaser trailer, of course, for the likes of the Marvels, so, but I'm sure about the fact that, well, again, it's a bit tricky to explain. So, anywho, so, and there's also another thing, is short things worth noting for, about the fact that, yeah, we, well, for those of you who lived in Japan anyway, that Dokapon Kingdom Connect has already came out in Japan for the Nintendo Switch version. So, well, it wasn't until the next couple of weeks that we will able to actually get the game onto the Nintendo Switch as well. So either way though, yeah, there's not much else to discuss. And for what I've seen, the gameplay footage of it so far, in terms of the Japanese version anyway, it seems it plays very similar to the forms of how it does it on, not only on the PlayStation 2, but also on the Wii version as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about the fact that the actual graphics might feel to be exactly the same as the forms of how it does it on the other two versions as far as I'm aware, aside from it's now in 1080p and all that stuff. So, anywho, so I suppose I should probably also mention about this as well. Unfortunately though, one of those games in particular is going to get delayed again, except this time it's now going to be on 2024. I'm guessing because of the forms of development time or something like that. So, one of those games in particular is going to be Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and it's going to be delayed again and again. So because of that though, it's now going to be pushed back until the February the 2nd in 2024. So yeah, that seems kind of out of nowhere. And also straight to the point though, one of those upcoming games for the Xbox Series X/S is going to be Redfall. And apparently though, about the fact that although we will be getting the 60 FPS performance mode, is going to be confirmed, but after launch. But that's just because but if you manage to get the game at launch, unfortunately you have to be playing around with the forms of the game at 30 FPS at launch. So it seems kind of unnecessary. Well, about the fact the matter is though, about the fact that it's kind of tricky to explain about this as well. But that's just because about the fact that the last time I've heard about the forms of something related to Redfall, which appears to be on this announcement trailer or something like that. So, anywho, so another thing I should probably explain about this too is that when it comes to forms of Warner Brothers and stuff like that, like we already know for one thing in mind earlier in this month that obviously Warner Brothers is now 100 years old recently, which I think is actually pretty cool. And on top of that, I really love the fact that it creates a bit of a montage of, you know, Looney Tune characters to somehow dressed up onto the forms of different cartoon shows, like for instance Scooby-Doo, and on top of that other cartoon shows as well, which I can't think about it in top of my head. Well, it's just because about the fact that it's been a very long while, as I said this countless amount of times already, but I'll say this one more time anyway, in case it gets a bit too repetitive at points, that it's been an awfully long while since I actually done some of my commentary, but hopefully, until by that time, until on Wednesday and onwards though, then hopefully I'll be back on track. So, or exponentially, if Maxie were able to go back onto Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance version, to be more specifically, then you know what I'm saying. So, anyway, so let's just go and use this little boot thing right here to get ourselves the next energy sphere. Now, as far as I'm aware, the third energy sphere is going to be the hardest to obtain, but that's just because about the fact that you need to be super patient with all that tricky platforming in mind, and also it does require a key item to, you know, unlock it and stuff like that. So, anywho, in terms of everything else I could possibly discuss, there's a new film that's about to be released during at some point in this year in particular called Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai, I think that's what it says anyway. So, never actually heard about it too much though, but that's just because about the fact that I might be biased when it comes to like preferred franchises as far as I'm aware. Now, in terms of the forms of anniversary stuff as far as I'm aware, well, I'm happy to report, better late than never I suppose, happy 20th anniversary of All Grown Up TV series by Nickelodeon, which is kind of like, you know, like a grown-up version of Rugrats and stuff like that. So, at least as far as I'm aware for that particular detail. And on top of all that stuff though, speaking of Nickelodeon, one of the stars in particular called Star Drake Bell is somehow gone missing for some reason, which I know it seems a little bit odd to say things like that, but either way though, how come he disappears like that? Well, I'm sure that we'll find out some more details about that in the later coming days. So, and here we go. This is by far the hardest energy sphere in the entire game, at least in my opinion. But that's just because if you made one wrong move, basically though, your key will about to be disappeared, and the only way you can try again is to quit the level and start all over again at the beginning portion of the level. So, yeah, it's definitely a little bit tricky though. So, Either way, we did somehow obtain it for the first attempt, thanks to this glorious spark ability, so that way I can able to protect myself from not only incoming enemies, but also with the forms of trying to able to protect myself without even getting hit by certain enemy encounters. So alright, so let's go and get ourselves the Ultra Sword super ability once again, except now the background music is now different. So either way, not much else to tell for this point. And let's just go ahead and kick some mini bosses' butts, until of course we can able to actually go across the forms of certain segments throughout. So, oh yeah, in terms of like something related to Looney Tunes related, basically we finally get a chance to able to get ourselves the release date or some more news discussions upon the forms of Tiny Toons Luniversity. And basically, it's finally going to be on its way, and it does shows us the release date for it. And I think it's going to be, I don't know, between September to November this year. Well, I haven't exactly looked upon it that much though, because it was announced during the forms of in 2020 before we come across into a lockdown situation. But either way, after 3 years, I haven't exactly looked upon it. Oh wow. I did not know there was actually a golden fan that we've actually got ourselves within, so that seems kind of interesting. And by the way, stand on the middle right there, because you will get crushed if you stand on the left or right, so be very careful. So anyway, and I suppose there's also another thing I wanted to say about this, is that Taz Quest for Burger is also getting its released trailer as well, and it's going to be only on digital format, and it's going to be releasing and doing at some point on June the 6th of 2023. So yeah, that might be seems a bit surprising, all things considered. Oh, and on top of that, I somehow managed to able to get myself my pre-order DVD combo, which appears to be both Puss in Boots 1 and the sequel, Puss in Boots The Last Wish, on DVD. So naturally speaking about the fact that, well, I was expecting to able to pre-order the Super Mario Bros. Movie on DVD, but the release date has not been confirmed yet, so I might as well wait until the release date happens, and then I can get myself into the forms of this amazing film again. So oh, and speaking of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, as for this point right now, it's actually on the top #1 in terms of the box office performance recently, especially about the fact that it's actually doing super well, and relatively speaking now, I think I highly doubt, or I would say it will be a guaranteed able to reach for about $1 billion. So, well, in terms of box office earnings, so that would be pretty impressive if that will happen, but we'll shall see what happens in due time, because we've almost at the second week in terms of what the film has been first released on that front. So anyway, so yeah, it's actually doing really well, especially that, you know, it's a much more improvement overall in comparison to the 1993's god-awful live-action adaptation. So anywho though, and I suppose there's actually one last thing I want to mention before we get into the forms of this entire whole process of this entire whole thing, as far as I'm aware. Yes, indeed, about the fact that, well, in terms of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom anyway, that it's been confirmed about the fact that one of the voice actors who voiced Ganondorf is none other than Matthew Marca. So yeah, that's actually pretty dope and everything. Although I'm really super excited about how Ganondorf is actually going to be voiced from, and on top of that, about the fact that he looks a lot more muscular than ever before. It's like a combination of the forms of not only Ganondorf from the past games, but also with Demise as well. Well, from the likes of Skyward Sword anyway. Spoiler alert for those who have not played the game before. But either way, time to take on those Sphere Doomers, as you can see, because we're going to be fighting 2 of these things at once. So, relatively speaking, with the Leaf copy ability, it should be a total piece of cake. So, either way, that basically does it from here. And, yeah, I guess that's all there is to say about this. Well, aside from the fact that there's one thing I totally forgot to mention about in regards to the forms of the Super Mario Bros. Movie's box office earnings, that it did somehow surpass 2019's Frozen 2 as having the highest grossing opening worldwide for an animated film grossing, you know, $375.6 million. So yeah, it's actually pretty swell. And on top of that, it's also achieved the highest grossing opening for a video game adaptation, surpassing 2019's Detective Pikachu, which is pretty swell. And on top of that, since the new films have been April 13th, it became the highest grossing video game movie of all time, surpassing Warcraft. So yeah, pretty good, huh? And on top of that, if you go onto here, this is what you come across into tons of bonuses you can able to come across into, like, you know, some more star points, healing items, and potentially 1-ups as well. So yeah, that's actually a great way if you want to grind for more extra lives if you're having a struggle. So there we go. This will be the last time we're going to be seeing that gold game in action though, because as I said before, that I don't think I can probably do the extra game mode. Well, I will say this right now, as soon as we get to the phones of the last few bits here and there, at least I'll show you guys a brief moment in the extra mode, until whenever we show off some extra content of how this game offers us to. I'll promise you guys about this, because, well, again, it plays exactly the same as the regular main story mode, aside from, you know, you have less health, and on top of that, the boss fights are actually gonna get a bit difficult. And on top of that though, the enemies can get a bit aggressive at points, but that's just me. Now we've unlocked the item challenge door, so now we can able to do that, but of course we'll save that in a later time. So let's take on the boss in the forms of Dangerous Dinner, which I'm sure that you probably already know at this point is definitely Landia. So, and I think we're most able to, I don't know, let's just go ahead and bring Sand again, because we want to see more Sand copy ability in action. So, oh, and on top of that though, it's about the fact that in addition, the film achieved the second highest grossing opening weekend in the US and Canada for an animated film, well behind Incredibles 2, owning, you know, $146 million in a 3-day frame and $204 million in a 5-day frame over Easter weekend. Well, in terms of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So it's awfully quite close in comparison to the films of The Incredibles 2, because I know for a fact The Incredibles 2 is actually the most highly anticipated films during the films of in 2018, which, you know, after 14 years since when it first came out in the first film, well, at least as far as I look back on the films of 2018, as far as I'm aware. But, oh yeah, I forgot to mention about looking back on the films of about 10 years ago with that Nintendo Direct announcement, but I think I should probably save that conversation until, maybe potentially until likely or so on Friday, because as far as I'm aware, after we're done with this particular boss fight against with Landia, then something tells me, although I think I'll let Maxie able to mention more about it, until when he goes back onto Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance. So, alright, so he's almost down. He's just able to do a bit of a split up heads, so yeah, we can easily decide able to take those guys down. Although I would originally try to able to bring out the Tornado ability with me, but I don't think I can probably do justice at this point when it comes to backtracking certain points. So, anyway, so with that being said though, I think I should probably end things off as soon as I defeat Landia. So yeah, join me next time for more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Is that we can assure you we'll move on to the final world in the game, which I'm sure if you played the original version of the game before, it's another dimension. So yeah, that's all I can say about it. So I'll see you guys until on Wednesday. Later, fellas.